Do you feel like, because I think the odds are in favor of Paddy, like, do you feel like you're going to play spoiler, or do you feel like, hey, they're looking at this whole thing wrong right now?
No, I love being the underdog. I think I've been the underdog. So out of the 12 fights, I think I've been an underdog like 8 or 9 times, because I'm always fighting such tough competition. But yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Tony Ferguson and Khabib. I'm going to fuck this whole thing up, and then I'm going to fight Ilya.
Do you feel like, because I think the odds are in favor of Paddy, like, do you feel like you're going to play spoiler, or do you feel like, hey, they're looking at this whole thing wrong right now?
No, I love being the underdog. I think I've been the underdog. So out of the 12 fights, I think I've been an underdog like 8 or 9 times, because I'm always fighting such tough competition. But yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Tony Ferguson and Khabib. I'm going to fuck this whole thing up, and then I'm going to fight Ilya.
Justin Gaethje didn't just answer questions at the latest interview, he fired a warning shot straight across Paddy Pimblett's path. The room shifted the moment his tone sharpened, and suddenly this matchup stopped feeling like hype and started feeling real. One line from Gaethje was enough to flip the energy, leaving everyone wondering whether Paddy knows exactly what kind of storm he's walking into.
You pulled me against Paddy because I think that he's gonna.
You think Paddy's gonna beat Justin Gaethje?
Easy.
Wow. Really easy.
Yeah, easy.
Really easy.
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje Paddy Pimblett is a fantastic, entertaining fight. For what it is a fucking banger. It's a great fight.
He began with brushing off the talk about betting lines like it was noise he'd heard 100 times before. Being labeled the underdog doesn't bother him. In fact, he treats it like familiar territory. He reminded everyone that most of his career has been spent taking on killers, and this is no different. Then he dialed it up, saying he plans to crash the storyline the same way he did against Tony Ferguson, by stepping in, causing chaos, and rewriting the script the moment the cage door shuts.
Last question. Do you feel like, because I think the odds are in favor of Paddy, like, do you feel like you're going to play spoiler, or do you feel like, hey, they're looking at this whole thing wrong right now?
No, I love being the underdog. I think I've been the underdog. So out of the 12 fights, I think I've been an underdog like 8 or 9 times, because I'm always fighting such tough competition. But yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Tony Ferguson and Khabib. I'm going to fuck this whole thing up.
Continuing in the same steady tone, Gaethje didn't get hung up on labels when the interviewer asked about the interim belt. He said the word on the strap doesn't change the reality. Financially, structurally, and on the UFC books, it carries the same weight as any championship. As far as he's concerned, he'll be paid like a challenger now and paid like a defending champion next time. No asterisk attached. Add in a marquee spot on one of the year's biggest cards, the first Paramount event, and he made it clear he's grateful for the trust the UFC has in him. For Gaethje, interim or not, this run is as real and rewarding as any title campaign.
I'm going to fight Ilya.
And I will, actually, I got to ask this before we go. This will be, I think you have the opportunity to become the only 2-time interim UFC champion.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, do you look at it as an interim title, or do you think, no, Ilya's out right now, so I consider myself the champ?
Ultimately, at the end of the day, when you have an interim championship, on paper, it is everything and anything a UFC championship is pay-wise. So I'm going to get paid as challenging for a championship this fight. I'm going to get paid as defending a championship when I defend it next time. And whether it's an interim or undisputed, it's the same thing on paper. And so, it gets me paid more, and, obviously gives me a headlining spot on the biggest card of the year, first Paramount show. And again, I'm just so thankful that the UFC trusts me.
And that mindset carried right into the question about Paddy's comments. Gaethje didn't frame any of it as real trash talk, just two very different personalities doing what they naturally do. In his eyes, Paddy's loud because that's who he is, Gaethje is blunt because that's who he is, and together it adds flavor to a matchup that fans are already tuning in for. He said he's fine with Paddy stirring the pot if it helps build the moment, but reminded everyone that the real spark comes when the cage locks. He called himself the division's most reliable source of violence, acknowledged Paddy's surge, and promised that once they square up, the entire arena will snap into chaos mode. Exactly the reaction he aims for every time he steps in there.
As far as Paddy, right, he said some things about you. Like he said, talking about you being on the sidelines, and I don't know if it was trash talk or whatever it was, trying to build the fight. But what do you think of Paddy? Like, do you think it's going to be cordial? Do you think there's going to be some trash talk today? Like, what's your opinion on the guy?
I mean, I think people will think it's trash talk, but it's just him being him, me being me. You know, this is an entertainment business, and he's one entertaining motherfucker. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind him adding something to the story so that people want to watch. Either way, people are going to want to watch. I'm the most consistent, most exciting guy, and this guy is on a freaking tear right now. So when that cage door locks, we're going to try to beat the shit out of each other, and I can guarantee every person in the arena will turn into an animal, and that's my goal.
Picking up where Gaethje's thoughts left off, Paddy kept it blunt. The belt on the line is the belt that matters. With Ilya out, he sees this as the real lightweight title, not some placeholder. He's not tossing it aside or waiting for a different version. This is the prize in front of him, and if he wins it, he says it's going straight back to Liverpool. Paddy expanded on his earlier point, saying his issue with Gaethje wasn't personal, it just didn't make sense to him. He explained that he never wanted a long layoff himself. By the time he fights, he'll have already been out 8 or 9 months, and even that felt too long. He pushed for October, pushed for Abu Dhabi, but couldn't land an opponent. Everyone in the top mix was already booked, Max with Dustin, Charles with Gamrot, and Justin was the only one without a dance partner. Paddy figured that matchup might come together then, but it didn't. Still, he shrugged it off, saying it all worked out in the end anyway.
No doubt about it. This is a crazy game, and he's going to get his chance, so see what happens.
Last question. Do you feel like, because I think the odds are in favor of Paddy, like, do you feel like you're going to play spoiler, or do you feel like, hey, they're looking at this whole thing wrong right now?
No, I love being the underdog. I think I've been the underdog. So out of the 12 fights, I think I've been an underdog like 8 or 9 times. You know?
Continuing from before, Gaethje shrugged off any disappointment about facing Paddy. To him, an interim belt is just as real, on paper, contract-wise, and opportunity-wise. He didn't know it would be Paddy until close to the announcement, with Ilya's plan still uncertain. Always ready to fight, Gaethje said this matchup lined up perfectly, and with Paramount's first UFC card and 2 of the most entertaining fighters in the world, he promised it's going to be one explosive showdown.
I'm always fighting such tough competition. But yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Tony Ferguson and Khabib. I'm going to fuck this whole thing up, and then I'm going to fight Ilya.
And I will, actually, I got to ask this before we go. This will be, I think you have the opportunity to become the only 2-time interim UFC champion.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, do you look at it as an interim title, or do you think, no, Ilya's out right now, so I consider myself the champ?
Ultimately, at the end of the day, when you have an interim championship, on paper, it is everything and anything a UFC championship is pay-wise. So I'm going to get paid as challenging for a championship this fight. I'm going to get paid as defending a championship when I defend it next time. And
Paddy gave a different take, saying he had been half preparing for Ilya during training camp and only found out a couple of days before the announcement that he'd be facing Justin. Still, he called it a privilege to share the octagon with a fighter of Gaethje's caliber and said it's going to be an incredible experience. And just like Gaethje, he didn't downplay the belt. Until Ilya returns, this is the real lightweight championship, and that's exactly what they're fighting for.
Armin. So I guess how far back did you know it would be Paddy? And is there any disappointment that it's not undisputed or, you know, Armin, who's highly ranked?
No, it's no disappointment at all. I mean, everything on paper, interim champion is the same as a champion on paper, contract-wise. And that's what we fight for. This is my job. And it's the biggest opportunity for me. I didn't know a long time before they announced the fight that it was going to be Paddy. I think they were waiting to see if Ilya was going to fight. And, you know, I think that variable was kind of unpredictable. None of us knew when he was going to fight. That's what I kept telling everybody. Like, whenever Ilya fights, I want to fight. And, you know, it turns out he's going to sit down for a little bit. So, Paramount, this is... you know, they need Michael Johnson versus Justin Gaethje coming out party. And Paramount, UFC combining, I mean, this is the fight that everyone wants. We're going to gain massive fans for the UFC, entertainment business, and I'm the most entertaining fighter in the world. And this guy's pretty close behind me, so...
Furthermore, Paddy stayed calm and confident when talking about facing Gaethje, noting that while Justin has a reputation for leaving opponents battered, he doesn't see himself being one of them. He's training with that reality in mind, preparing to stay strong and intact no matter how intense the fight gets.
It's going to be a hell of a fight.
Same question for Paddy.
Well, I was half preparing for Ilya, to be honest. I was doing little bits in training camp for Ilya. And then, like 2 days before the announcement, I got told it was Justin. But it's a privilege to share the octagon with such a legend, and it's gonna be unbelievable to get in there with him. And as he said, until Ilya comes back, this is the real belt. People call it a fake belt all they want, but until Ilya comes back into the octagon, this is the belt. Me and him are fighting for the lightweight championship.
Moving on to the opinions of the experts, Joe Rogan painted Gaethje as a truly terrifying fighter, standing out even in a sport built on violence. He pointed to the Barboza knockout as an example of Justin's unique blend of controlled chaos, wild, relentless, but always precise. Rogan stressed that he keeps getting better with every fight, and now the big question is just how much he's dialed in during training for this next matchup against Paddy.
Justin Gaethje's a monster. He's a terrifying individual. In a sport that's violent, he stands out as the most violent. You watched his knockout of Edson Barboza, that motherfucker attacks people. There's a reckless abandon to his calculated wildness. He's better all the time. The question is, how much has he been training?
In a straightforward exchange with Joe Rogan, Ilya didn't mince words. He sees Paddy cruising past Gaethje. He pointed out that while Justin is an absolute powerhouse, grappling isn't really his game, but it's Paddy's specialty. According to Ilya, Justin can dominate with sheer force, but when it comes to submissions and wrestling IQ, Paddy has the edge, and that could make all the difference once the fight hits the mat.
I would put Justin Gaethje against Paddy Pimblett, me against Islam. Once I pass him, I get the title, and you put me against Paddy, because I think that he's gonna.
You think Paddy's gonna beat Justin Gaethje?
Easy.
Wow, really easy.
Yeah, easy.
Really easy.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a crazy thing to say because Justin Gaethje's a fucking animal.
Yeah, but he doesn't know how to grapple, and Paddy knows
But
that.
he's a Division I wrestler. He knows how to grapple. You don't think he knows how to grapple? He just chooses not to. He chooses
I
to
don't
stand
think so.
and fight.
On the other hand, Tim Welch broke down the matchup with a careful, measured perspective. He acknowledged Ilya's bold prediction that Paddy could dominate Gaethje, but stopped short of agreeing it would be a blowout. Welch pointed out that while Paddy could potentially secure a takedown a few rounds in, Justin's wrestling and overall skill make him far from an easy target. Age differences favor Paddy slightly, but Gaethje's power and experience mean he's always a threat. Ultimately, Welch leaned toward Justin, though he stressed that anything can happen once the fight starts.
Damn, what could be next for Paddy? Ilya says he thinks Paddy kills Justin Gaethje. I don't think kill him, dude. Justin Gaethje is so fucking solid. But again, 5-round fight, 2, 3, 4 rounds into the match, and Paddy does score a takedown. Now he's got maybe Justin Gaethje on his back in half guard.
That's very plausible. Justin forgets he fucking wrestles.
He definitely trains it, but you could see why Ilya thinks that a little bit. Plus, Justin Gaethje's 36, Paddy Pimblett's 30 years old. But again, you can't count Justin Gaethje out. He could knock Paddy the fuck out.
I would lean towards Justin in that fight.
YouTube analyst Paul Stryker framed the matchup as a classic youth versus wear and tear scenario. He highlighted Paddy's 30 years as the ideal MMA age, physically sharp, mentally hungry, and fully recovered between fights. In contrast, Justin Gaethje at 37 carries decades of punishing wars on his body, from brutal brawls to career-defining battles with Chandler and Poirier, not to mention the punishing losses to Khabib and Oliveira. Even at his best, Gaethje's high-risk style has left him worn down. He painted Paddy as the fresh force ready to take on a veteran whose once indestructible armor is now chipped and weathered.
Paddy is only 30 years old, the golden age for an MMA fighter. That perfect balance where physical prime overlaps with solid experience. His body recovers faster, his muscles work at maximum efficiency, and mentally he's fresh, hungry, and ready for war. Now compare that to Justin Gaethje, who's 37. And we're not talking about a 37-letny point fighter who dances around and wins on points. We're talking about a man whose entire career is built on car crash wars, brawls, and life-shortening shootouts. Every one of his fights is basically an act of self-destruction. Just look at his legendary wars with Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier. Those fights took real years off his life. And we're not even getting into the brutal loss to Max Holloway, which everyone still remembers way too clearly. Even at his absolute peak, Gaethje couldn't get past Khabib or Charles Oliveira. Both of them dominated him and finished him decisively. Paddy, on the other hand, is the new wave. At this point, Gaethje is not a fresh granite wall in front of him. He's more like a rock that's been eaten away by time, damage, and erosion and is finally ready.
However, Michael Chiesa offered perspective on the bigger stakes of the matchup, noting that whoever comes out on top between Paddy and Gaethje likely won't linger with the interim belt. In his view, there won't be a title defense. The winner is headed straight into a clash with Ilia Topuria. Chiesa appreciates the clarity this brings to the lightweight division, even if it sidelines fighters like Arman Tsarukyan. With so much riding on it, he sees this fight not just as exciting, but as one capable of reshaping the entire division in an instant.
Paddy Pimblett, Justin Gaethje fighting for the interim title. Whoever wins that fight will move on to fight Ilia. And I don't think that there will be a title defense for the interim title. If I was to guess, if I was to bet, there will be no title defense of the interim title. I think that the next fight for whoever wins between Paddy and Justin, I think their next fight will be Ilia Topuria. So do not think they will defend the interim title. So good movement and clarity at 155 pounds. I feel for Arman Tsarukyan, but this fight's going to be incredible.
So, what's your take? Will Paddy out-grapple and outlast Justin, or will Gaethje's power and pressure be too much? Drop your predictions in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for all the latest updates and fight breakdowns.